Raise your hand if you think that an inanimate object can think. Give me 15 minutes and I will prove you all wrong. Usually, when we think about intelligence, the first thing that comes to our mind is human intelligence. Brain, memory, and mind. All of these things are related to the intelligence of a human being like me, you, and even you. However, we have put ourselves in a box by considering intelligence only as a living object trait. But let's dig deeper than that. Have you ever wondered if an intelligent being can be inanimate? It seems pretty clear that the answer shall be no, but it's not as simple as it seems. Something which cannot even be alive should not be able to think, or should it? Firstly, let's start off with a definition of intelligence as a concept. Intelligence is a subjective and fragile term, but I will be referring to American Psychological Association's definition of the intelligence. So, according to American Psychological Associations, the conditions of intelligence are: something has the ability to learn, something has the ability to understand, and something has the ability to generate judgments and opinions based on the reason. Moreover, we have to discuss what is meant by such words as judgment, opinion, understand, and learn in this definition. So, according to Cambridge Dictionary, learn is to get new knowledge or skill in a subject or activity. Understand is to know how something happens or works. Judgment is the ability to form valuable opinions and make good decisions. And opinion is a thought or a belief about something or someone. Moreover, we have to discuss what is meant by a living object to understand what we mean by inanimate, or simply not a live object. According to biology, something can be described as alive if it can perform such functions as movement, homeostasis, respiration, reproduction, growth, nutrition, sensitivity, and excretion. So, as we have already said, these conditions are enough to say whether something is alive or not. So let's move on and talk about some different inanimate systems which help us say if and build the line if something can be intelligent and inanimate at the same time or not. Firstly, I would like to start off with the recent research, which is a breakthrough in the perception of intelligence. It's motivated me to write this speech, to be honest. So, as I have already said, the first thing we'll probably think of when we start speaking about intelligence is our brain. Our brain is a really complex structure, and it clearly satisfies all the conditions of intelligence. But what if we start talking about much more simple structures? For example, in 2022, just 3 years ago, a group of scientists from the University of Melbourne decided to prove that 800,000 brain cells put in a Petri dish can perform goal-oriented tasks. In their case, a computer game called Pong. 800,000 brain cells is much more simple structure than brain itself. To illustrate, there are 85 billion brain cells in our brain. Compared to 800,000 brain cells in a Petri dish, it's 106,000 to 150 times difference between the amount of brain cells in our brain and the amount of brain cells in the Petri dish. And still, it was able to play the game of Pong. So how did the scientists achieve that? So what scientists have done is that they took some embryonic mice brain cells, as well as some human brain cells, derived from the stem cells, and grew them on top of the microelectrodes arrays, which could not only stimulate the brain cells' activity, but also read it. Afterwards, they connected this microelectrode to a simple computer and ran a game of Pong on it. The computer inputted some feedback into the microelectrodes and taught the brain cells to act if they themselves were the paddle in the Pong game. Afterwards, they monitored the results using electric probes, which recorded the special spikes on the grid. The spikes got stronger when the game was played successfully, but when the ball was missed, this playstyle was critiqued by the special software program. It has proved us that neurons can adapt their activity to the changes in the environment in a real time, in a goal-oriented way. Right, we have to take out two main concepts from this research. Firstly, intelligence can be present in much more simple structures than we have originally thought. And secondly, humans can create something intelligent by themselves. Right, inspired by the previous research, a group of scientists from the University of Reading decided to prove that you don't even need sophisticated brain cells to make something intelligent. And 5 months ago, they came up with quite interesting results. A group of scientists from the University of Reading decided to make intelligent not a bunch of brain cells, but a piece of hydrogel. Just imagine, a piece of hydrogel, this simple material which costs a couple of pounds, can be intelligent. So how did the scientists achieve that? Scientists connected hydrogel in a such position that electricity, when passed through the hydrogel, was dragging ions with water to the source of the current, causing the gel to swell. Afterwards, they connected microelectrodes to the hydrogel and inputted some feedback. This feedback taught the hydrogel how to play the game of Pong. And guess what? Researchers have found out that this hydrogel could not only play the game of Pong, but could also increase its accuracy and the length of rallies in the research by up to 10%. So is a piece of hydrogel actually intelligent? Let's take a look at this from the perspective of our three criteria of intelligence. So firstly, a hydrogel clearly can learn because it has learned not only how to play a game of Pong, but also how to increase its accuracy by up to 10% over the time. Our second criteria was understanding. And understanding is the most controversial criteria because we have no real evidence that hydrogel can actually understand how it was playing the game. But it has developed a rudimentary memory and it could store the data about the previous rallies. Therefore, there could be a possibility that hydrogel could actually be intelligent and understand how it was playing the game. And the third criteria was generating a certain opinion and judgment. And hydrogel clearly can generate certain opinion and judgment because it was able to respond to the electrical impulses. So let's take a step back and talk about why we should care about it at all and what these researchers tell us. Firstly, both of these researchers tell us that we can use biological materials to imitate brain's activity. And what does the hydrogel's jelly-like structure remind you of? Our brain. Right now, the researchers from the University of Reading are researching if we can create an artificial brain which will be able to think. Just imagine an inanimate object being able to think. So I think that these two researchers are obviously not enough to convince you that inanimate objects can be intelligent. So let's take a look at two other inanimate systems which can be intelligent, although they are inanimate, and talk about redefining intelligence in the broader terms. Firstly, I know what you thought about at first when you heard about my topic, AI. AI is a constantly evolving field which includes machines exhibiting intelligence, mostly computer systems. AIs are not alive, but they're trying to imitate brain's activity by using such processes as, for example, pattern recognition. AIs use pattern recognition, which is a process of recognizing certain patterns in a set of data, mostly exhibited by the machine learning algorithms in AI. And while intelligence is a broader term, which includes adaptation to the new situations in the environment. we have to understand that AIs could be already considered intelligent. Last September in 2024, and a month ago, there were released 2 new models of AI. First one was OpenAI O1 preview, and last month, Chinese AI startup has released DeepSeek R1. Major difference from all the previous AIs is the fact that the new AIs could actually think before giving an answer. New AIs, such as R1 and O1, could generate a chain of thoughts before giving the response to the user. So AIs can already be considered intelligence. But let's take a look at another, biological system. What I found really cool about biological systems is the fact that they can actually adapt to the changes in the environment over a long period of time. For example, let's take a look at viruses. Viruses are microscopic organisms which can infect hosts such as plants, animals, and humans. They're small pieces of genetic information in a protective shell. And yes, viruses are considered inanimate because they cannot reproduce, which is one of the main criteria of life. Antonio Damasio, a Portuguese neuroscientist, said an interesting quote about viruses. In spite of their non-living status, we cannot deny viruses have some fraction of the non-explicit variety of intelligence that animates all living organisms, starting with bacteria. Viruses carry a hidden competence that manifests itself only once they reach a suitable living terrain. Let's take a look at the research which helps us prove that viruses can actually be intelligent. 15 years ago, a group of scientists from Imperial College London have found out that viruses can have basic hive mentality. I know that this research is quite old, but it helps us prove the previously stated point. So what they have actually found out is the fact that viruses can actually hop over the already infected cells and find new ones, not infected ones. One scientist from the research group has said that it's as if the proteins are telling the virus, hey guys, there is no point in coming in there. If you think about it, it's very Darwinian. So viruses can actually think. Let's take a look at virus intelligence from the perspective of our 3 intelligence conditions. Firstly, viruses have the ability to learn new things as any biological systems because they can develop and adapt over a long period of time. Secondly, viruses are able to understand basic concepts because, as we have already shown, viruses can have basic hive mentality. Third, viruses are capable of giving some judgment and having some opinions because they can understand and identify whether they should infect a host or not. Right now, my question of whether inanimate object can be intelligent does not seem so crazy to you, or does it? When we talk about intelligence, we have to understand that intelligence is subjective and fragile. But if you look at it a bit deeper, we can understand that intelligence surrounds us. Intelligence is everywhere. But for a regular human, it's quite hard to spot an intelligent being. For a long time, people have questioned themselves if we are the only intelligent organisms. But we haven't been able to investigate it scientifically until recently. This led to a number of theories about the presence of intelligence in different objects. But what if we assume that every object in the universe is intelligent? This concept has been known throughout the history as a philosophy of mind, or panpsychism. Panpsychism is a view that the mind, or a mind-like aspect, is ubiquitous and fundamental to all the beings in the universe. This is one of the oldest philosophical ideas, which was ascribed to philosophers such as Leibniz, Spinoza, Thales, Plato, and even Schopenhauer. Recent interest in panpsychism in 21st century was revived by current problems of consciousness and recent developments in fields like neuroscience, quantum mechanics, and psychology. Right now, you probably think that we should redefine intelligence, because surely it cannot encompass all of these new inanimate systems which I have previously mentioned. But what I think we should take from my speech is the fact that maybe we're just not that special. Times and times again, people discover that different features which we considered uniquely human can be present elsewhere. So maybe right now we are in the end of the human intelligence era. I want to end my speech with a quote of a really smart guy called Vitaly Soldatenko. Right now, we are in the position when we are watching intelligence become something totally different from what we knew it to be today. Thank you.